My dad left when I was 5, came back when I was 20, and demanded I change my last name to his. I told him I would, if he could name 3 things about me without Googling. He couldn't, and my silence was louder than any rejection. I'm Lucas, 21, male, and yeah, I guess I've been carrying this story in my ribs for so long, it started to rot from the inside. So here we are, ripping it open. My dad, Mark, 42 now, left when I was 5. Not like a slow fade or a sad divorce. I mean left. Disappeared. One day he was there making burnt pancakes on Sundays. The next, he was gone. I remember crying in the pantry holding the syrup bottle like if I waited long enough he'd come back to use it. He never did. Mom, Angela, 45, never talked much about him after that. I'd ask questions when I was a kid and she'd just get this hard look in her eyes and say, "Some people aren't meant to stay." That line became scripture in our house. It was just her and me after that, and she never remarried. Said she didn't want me growing up around another temporary man. She worked 2 jobs, nursing home at night, front desk at a dentist's office during the day. She'd come home smelling like antiseptic and sadness, always exhausted, always with this fierce love in her eyes that made me feel safe, even when we had nothing. I remember one night when I was 10, I had this school project about family trees. I stayed up late sketching it out with colored pencils, filled in all the branches I knew. Mom, Grandma, Uncle Dave. But there was this big empty space on the left where Dad was supposed to go. I just wrote Mark, missing. I left it on the kitchen table. Next morning, I found it in the trash, soaked in coffee and torn down the middle. She never said a word. But I learned something that day. Some silences are louder than screams. I grew up without a father. Without a single birthday card, no surprise visits, no Facebook messages, nothing. Radio silence. He became more of a ghost story than a person. I built my own furniture, taught myself to shave with YouTube tutorials, watched other kids toss baseballs with their dads and just swallowed it, over and over. But I made it. I graduated high school, got into community college, started working at an auto shop part-time, built my life from duct tape and borrowed tools. Not flashy, but mine. Then he came back, like a horror movie jump scare. Except he wasn't hiding in the dark. He showed up in daylight, walked into the shop one afternoon like it was some kind of homecoming. Same eyes, same voice, but nothing behind them. He stood there, smile all crooked and fake, like we were long-lost friends. Said my name like it belonged to him. "Lucas," he said. "Man, you've grown. I've been meaning to reach out." I didn't say anything, just stared. And then he dropped it, like he'd been rehearsing the line all morning. "I want you to change your last name back to mine. It's time we fix what's broken." And just like that, my blood boiled in reverse. But I didn't yell. I didn't punch anything. I just stared him dead in the eye and said, "Sure, I'll change it. If you can name 3 things about me." No Googling. His smile twitched. That was the moment I knew. He didn't even know my favorite color, let alone what he'd walked back into. He laughed at first. Not like a real laugh, more like the kind people do when they're uncomfortable and hoping to reset the room. "3 things. Come on, Lucas, that's silly. I'm your dad." I folded my arms. "So prove it." His eyes darted for a second. He looked at the oil-stained walls of the shop, like maybe there'd be clues hanging next to the fan belts and socket wrenches. Then he said, "You were always into art. You used to draw, right?" Wrong. I've hated drawing since I was 6, when a teacher mocked my stick figure for looking like it had scoliosis. But I didn't correct him. I just raised an eyebrow. He tried again. "You play baseball?" I scoffed. "I was on the team for 1 semester, got benched for most of it." His face paled. That was 2 strikes. Then he stood up straighter like he suddenly remembered something. "You like Oreos? You always had those after school, I remember that." I did, when I was 5, and then we couldn't afford them anymore. Still, I let the silence grow heavy between us. "That's it?" I asked. "That's your list? Art, baseball, and cookies?" He opened his mouth, but nothing came out. Just breathe. And I swear to God, for 1 second I saw it hit him, the realization that he didn't know me. Not even a little. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I didn't throw a wrench through a window, even though the urge buzzed in my palms. I just looked at him like he was a stranger in line behind me at the DMV, because that's what he was. "You know what the worst part is?" I said quietly. "I used to dream about this. Not you walking in here demanding something. Just showing up, saying you were sorry, wanting to know me." He tried to cut in. "I am sorry." "No, you're not," I snapped. "You're not sorry. You're ashamed. You're scared that you're gonna die and no one will remember you. You want legacy, a name. You want your property back." He flinched like I'd slapped him. I took off my work gloves and tossed them on the bench. "You lost the right to ask anything from me the day you left Mom holding a toddler and a pile of unpaid bills." I had my reasons. "You had excuses," I said. "Don't confuse the two." His face twisted. He wasn't used to being spoken to like that. He looked like he wanted to lash out but didn't know how. Then his voice cracked. This pitiful, desperate tone. "You don't understand what it was like for me. That's when I lost it. I stepped forward, got close enough to smell his cologne. Cheap, overpowering, like he was trying to mask the stench of guilt. I don't care what it was like for you. You left. You vanished. And now you want your name in my email signature like it earns you a do-over? He didn't respond. I grabbed a rag, wiped the sweat from my face, and walked past him like he wasn't even there. I didn't look back, just left him standing in that garage, surrounded by tools he never taught me to use in a life he didn't help build. He wasn't part of my story. Just a footnote in a chapter I already closed. He didn't take the hint. 3 days after that conversation, he showed up at my apartment door with a manila envelope and a greasy smile, like he thought all I needed was a rebrand. I didn't answer. I watched from the peephole as he knocked, paced, knocked again. Then he started sliding the envelope under my door. That's when I opened it. "Are you serious right now?" I asked, barefoot, wearing old sweats, heart racing. He looked almost proud. "I figured maybe if you saw it written out, it'd feel more real. It's the name change paperwork. I even filled out most of it for you." "Wow, you really do think this is about paperwork," I muttered, flipping it over. He'd printed out the forms, marked where I was supposed to sign, highlighted it in yellow. There was even a sticky note on top. "Proud to have you back, son." Back? I was never with him. "I'm not signing this," I said flatly. He got that look. Tight jaw, trembling lips. The same face I've seen in junkyard dogs right before they snap. "You're making a mistake," he said. "You don't understand how important this is to me. You're my only son. My blood, my name is your name." "No," I said, stepping forward. "It's your name, not mine. Mine was chosen, given to me by someone who stayed, who worked double shifts and still came home to help with math homework, who cried with me when my first dog died and didn't just tell me to man up." His face was turning red now. "You're being selfish." That word hit like a slap. "Selfish?" I repeated. "Selfish is abandoning your kid for 15 years and thinking you can come back with a goddamn highlighter and rewrite history. I'm trying to fix things," he said, voice rising. "Don't you see that? I came back. That means something. To you," I said. "Not to me." That's when he snapped, like a toddler denied a toy. "You ungrateful little bastard," he shouted. "I gave you life, and then dipped out before the first day of kindergarten," I shouted back. "You gave me abandonment issues, not life." He shoved the envelope hard against my chest. "I deserve this." I didn't move. Just let the papers fall to the floor between us. "Deserve?" I said. "You don't even know me." He stood there panting, eyes wild, like he was expecting me to cry or collapse or finally say, "Fine, let's try." But all I gave him was silence. Thick, suffocating silence. He stormed out, but he wasn't done, because men like him, they don't take no for an answer. They escalate. They infect. And that's when the real chaos started. You want loud, you want drama, buckle the hell up. Because next, he brought my grandma into it. She showed up on my doorstep with a casserole and guilt in her eyes. Grandma Ruth, his mother, 73, floral perfume, soft voice, that always made me feel like a kid even when I towered over her. I hadn't seen her in 5 years. Not since Mom and I stopped going to the family Christmases where everyone acted like my dad didn't vanish and I was just too shy to ask where he went. "Lucas, baby," she said, lifting the Pyrex dish like it was a peace offering. "Can I come in?" I should have said no, but trauma makes you polite. So I let her in. She sat at my tiny kitchen table like she owned it, set the dish down, folded her hands, and got to the point faster than I thought she would. "Your father called me. He's very upset. Says you're being cruel." I laughed. "Did he tell you why?" She pursed her lips like I was being dramatic again. "Like always. He said you won't even consider changing your name back." "After all this time?" "After all what time?" I snapped. "The time he wasn't here? The birthdays he missed? The nights I cried because I thought he was dead? The graduation he never showed up for?" She flinched, but not from shock. From annoyance. "You don't understand what he went through," she said softly. "He was broken back then. He had so much pressure, his job, the drinking, his father. I don't care about his excuses," I said. "He left, and now he wants a favor?" That's when she switched tactics. Pulled out the weapon every manipulator eventually reaches for. "Your mother poisoned you against him," she said. "That woman always hated our family. She made sure you only ever saw one side." I froze. That wasn't just offensive. That was war. I stood up so fast the chair screeched against the tile. "You do not get to come into my house and trash the woman who raised me alone while your son ran away from being a father." "I'm trying to help," she said, still seated, still calm, like she hadn't just lit a match. "You're trying to gaslight me into compliance. Big difference." I opened the door. "Take your casserole and go." She stood slowly, face trembling. "You're breaking his heart." "Good," I said. "Maybe he'll finally feel something real." She left in tears, but not before leaving the dish behind. I dumped it in the trash. That night, I got a string of texts from numbers I didn't recognize. "You don't turn your back on blood." "He's trying. What have you done?" "Ungrateful piece of shit. He should have stayed gone." Turns out my father had gone full PR mode. Started telling everyone I rejected him for no reason, that he came back with an open heart and I spit in his face. And then he showed up at my job, at the shop, in front of my coworkers, and he didn't come alone. Update. Honestly, I wasn't planning on updating. I figured I'd tell the story, get it off my chest, and let it rot in the Reddit void. But damn, some of y'all really felt that. I got DMs from strangers saying they cried that they saw their own dads in mine. One guy said he screenshotted the name test and sent it to his deadbeat father with "Pop quiz, bitch." Iconic. Also, to the person who commented, "Bet the casserole was dry AF. You were so right. My trash can still smells like raisins and passive aggression. Anyway, I owe you the rest." Because things escalated. Remember how I said my dad showed up at my job? Yeah, he didn't come alone. He brought his pastor. I'm not even joking. Man rolled into the shop with some dude in khakis and a crosspin, acting like this was a divine intervention instead of a full-blown ambush. I was under the hood of a car, elbow deep in an oil change, when I heard, "Lucas, we need to talk, as a family." I looked up, and there they were. My absentee father and a stranger holding a Bible. I thought maybe if you heard from someone neutral, my dad started, but I cut him off. Neutral? I wiped my hands on a rag. You brought a pastor to force me into a name change? The guy tried to play peacemaker. Son, forgiveness is a cornerstone of healing. No offense, I snapped, but unless you're here to bless this engine block, I'm not interested. My boss, Pete, God bless him, walked over then, arms crossed. Something wrong here? I said. Just a man trying to buy redemption he didn't earn. Pete nodded, turned to them and said, "We don't do surprise sermons during work hours. Y'all can go." They left, but my dad looked crushed, like he couldn't believe I wasn't falling for his Lifetime movie performance. As if dragging a church guy into a mechanic's garage was going to undo 15 years of abandonment. But the worst part wasn't that stunt, it was what happened after. Because the next morning, someone keyed my car. Not just a little scratch. I'm talking deep, aggressive letters carved across the hood. Traitor? Yeah, that's when I stopped playing defense. Because if he wanted to drag this into a war, fine. I had ammo, I had receipts, and I was done staying silent. I didn't sleep that night. Just stood at the window, staring at the word carved into my hood like it was a warning shot. Traitor, deep enough to expose the metal. Someone had taken their time. Someone wanted me to see it every damn day. I filed a police report. Not that it'd do much, but I wanted it on record. When the officer asked if I had enemies, I laughed and said, "Just my father." I knew it was him, or one of his new little minions. The guilt brigade he'd stirred up to avenge his wounded pride. People like that, they can't handle rejection. Especially not when it's public. They don't just take the no, they need to make you pay for saying it. So I started digging. See, my dad wasn't just trying to reclaim me for emotional reasons. He had motives, slippery ones. Turns out, about 6 months before he showed up, he'd filed for bankruptcy. Chapter 13. Massive debt. 2 failed businesses. 1 pending lawsuit from a former partner who claimed my dad misused funds. Guess whose name came up in some of the proposed restructuring documents? Mine. Lucas Taylor Moore, my legal name. I hyphenated my mom's maiden name after high school because she earned it. Only in the filings, he had me listed as Lucas Moore. No Taylor, as if I'd already changed it. There was even a clause suggesting family reconciliation and potential shared assets as part of his long-term recovery plan. The man was trying to asset me into his bankruptcy like I was a fussing coupon. And that's when the fog lifted. This wasn't about family. It was about leverage. If I changed my name, officially became his again, he could claim me as a dependent in the restructuring, maybe even suggest I'd back his repayment plan. Legally, it was shady. But manipulators thrive in the gray, so I fought back. I took everything. Emails, screenshots, the weird name, swap in the court doc, the photos of the keyed car, and I printed it all. Then I wrote a letter, just 1 page. No ranting, just truth. I made copies, mailed one to every person he had recruited, grandma, the pastor, even a few family friends I knew he'd spun lies to. The top of the letter read, "This is the man who says he wants to be my father again. Read it and ask yourself, does this look like love or just desperation?" At the bottom, I taped a photo of my hood. Traitor. That was Friday. By Sunday, my phone lit up like a Christmas tree. Not with apologies, oh no, with meltdowns. "You humiliated me. You didn't have to drag everyone into this. This was private family business." To which I replied, "Then maybe you shouldn't have keyed my car in public." It started with a dead bird on my doorstep. Yeah, a dead bird. Wings broken, neck twisted, laid out perfectly on the welcome mat like some discount mafia warning. I stepped over it, didn't even flinch. I was too tired, too angry, too done to give whoever did it the satisfaction of a reaction. But it didn't stop there. 3 nights later, someone egged my apartment windows. Not just once, 6 eggs. Even got one on the second floor, which told me they planned this. Put effort into it. Then came the voicemails. Blocked numbers. Static-filled threats. Just whispering and breathing, and one particularly chilling message that said, "Your mom can't protect you anymore." That's when I stopped brushing it off. I installed cameras, floodlights, told Pete at the shop what was going on, and he had zero hesitation locking down the garage for me after hours. Even gave me a spare bat from his son's old baseball kit and said, "If anyone shows up, you swing first, apologize never." But the boiling point, the thing that turned my silence into fury, was my mom. She called me crying, said someone had slipped a letter under her windshield at work. No postage, just a folded paper with one line. "Your son is tearing this family apart." That's when I lost every last ounce of chill I had left. He wanted attention? He wanted drama? Fine. Let's give him what he really feared. Public rejection. I wrote a post, a long one, posted it on Facebook and made it public. Attached photos of the car, the dead bird, the bankruptcy records, and the name change manipulation. The caption was simple: "This is what happens when a father disappears for 15 years and returns not to apologize, but to take. This isn't a reunion. It's a shakedown. I will not carry your name. I will not carry your debt. And I will not be silent while you weaponize strangers to guilt me into submission. My name is Lucas Taylor Moore. That's the name of the boy who survived without you. That's the name of the man you don't get to claim." It blew up. I don't mean viral like millions, but local viral. Family friends shared it. So did old teachers, neighbors, even a couple people from his old church who commented stuff like, "We always wondered why Mark vanished." This explains everything. Suddenly, his support network dried up like spit on pavement. And then, he showed up at my apartment at 2 a.m. screaming my name, hammering his fists on my door, yelling about betrayal, about blood, about how I ruined him. I called the cops, watched from the peephole as they hauled him away, still ranting. He hasn't been back since, but it's not over, because now he's trying to sue me. Update 2. Yep, he filed a lawsuit, defamation, emotional distress, and, get this, reputational sabotage. Claimed I'd deliberately destroyed his standing in the community and jeopardized his ability to rebuild paternal trust. He attached screenshots of my Facebook post, the letters I sent to family, even the photo of Traitor keyed into my car like he was the victim of vandalism. But here's where it gets fun. I'd already been documenting everything. Every text, voicemail transcription, picture of eggshells, police reports. I had receipts for days. But the poetic part? It was the final exhibit I submitted with my lawyer's help, a scanned copy of my mother's will. See, what I didn't mention before was this. My mom passed away earlier this year. Quietly, cancer, fast. We didn't even tell extended family because she didn't want a scene. She left me everything. Not because of money, there wasn't much, but because she wanted one last thing to be undeniably mine. But tucked inside her handwritten will was this. Lucas chose to keep my name when he turned 18. I never asked him to. I never expected it. He said it was his way of honoring the parent who stayed. I never told him this, but it was the proudest day of my life. If Mark ever returns, tell him, "You lost more than a name. You lost the right to even say it." My lawyer read that out loud in court. You could hear the damn ceiling fan buzzing, it was so quiet. The judge dismissed the suit, called it a blatant attempt to manipulate the legal system for personal retribution. Then he warned my father not to make contact again or face a restraining order. And the kicker? When we walked out of that courthouse, my dad tried one last time, reached out like he was about to hug me or shake my hand or I don't even know what. I stepped back. Then I handed him something. Not a document, not a letter, not even words, just a tiny wooden box. He opened it right there on the steps. Inside, the old nameplate from my childhood bedroom, the one he carved when I was 4 years old, Lucas Moore. I'd kept it all this time, shoved in a drawer, forgotten. It was cracked down the middle. On top of it was a note. "You can have this back. I grew out of it." He looked gutted, like I just handed him his own obituary. Because in a way I had. That was the funeral. Not for a man, but for the fantasy of what he thought being a father entitled him to. My story's done now. My name is still Lucas Taylor Moore, and it's never changing. A week after the court ruling, I got a letter in the mail. Not from him, he finally went quiet, but from his sister, my Aunt Carla. I hadn't heard from her since I was 11. She'd sent me a Christmas card with a $5 bill and a scribbled, "Stay strong, kiddo." This time it was a full letter, 2 pages, cursive so shaky it looked like a confession bleeding out. It started with, "I've kept my mouth shut too long." She wrote about how she'd tried to intervene back when my dad first disappeared, how he'd cut off even his own siblings, convinced that parenting was draining his potential. Her words, not mine. She said he used to brag about not getting tied down and called my mom a life sentence he didn't sign up for. that he made a new life out west for a while with some woman named Carrie who already had kids, played stepdad until they asked too much of him too. Then he ran again. He leaves when love turns into responsibility, she wrote. He always has. I'm ashamed to be related to him. The letter ended like this. I saw your post. I read your mother's will. You don't owe that man a damn thing. And if he tries anything again, let me know. I'll testify. I'll burn every bridge if it means keeping you safe. That broke me in a different way. Not from grief, but from release. Because all my life, I thought nobody saw. That he vanished without consequence. That the world moved on and only I stayed behind in the wreckage. But someone had been watching. And now, finally, someone stood beside me. That weekend, I went to Mom's grave, brought sunflowers, her favorite, sat by the marker for a long time, just breathing in the quiet. My hand brushed the stone like I used to squeeze hers during thunderstorms. Don't worry, I whispered. I told him no, and the wind blew hard then, almost like she answered. That night, I slept like I hadn't in months. No nightmares, no door knocks, just silence. But this time, the kind I could live with. Still, there was one last thing I had to do. It had been sitting in my drawer for years, unopened. A birthday card from him, sent when I was 13. The only contact he'd made in all that time. I'd kept it sealed, too scared of what it said, too angry to throw it away. That night, I opened it. Inside was a photo of us from when I was 3, me on his shoulders, both of us laughing, and a message in uneven handwriting. You'll understand when you're older. I stared at it for a long time. Then I grabbed a lighter, walked out to the porch, and watched it burn. That version of me, the one who waited, who wondered, who hoped, he burned with it. And honestly, good riddance. It's quiet now. Not the kind of silence that comes from holding your breath, waiting for the next knock, the next insult, the next manipulation, but the kind that feels earned, like stillness after a storm. The kind you don't even notice at first because it feels like absence, until you realize it's actually peace. That's where I'm at. I changed the locks, deleted the voicemails, cleaned out the last few relics from that era of my life, the burned photo, the fake nameplate, even the legal forms he tried to trick me into signing. Every trace of him is gone from my home, but not from me. Because here's the thing they don't tell you about closure. It's not about forgetting, it's about owning. Owning what happened, what hurt, what was taken, and deciding what it didn't get to keep. He took my childhood, but he doesn't get my adulthood. He took my first memories, but he doesn't get to rewrite the rest. And that name he tried to reclaim like it was a trophy, he can keep it because I'm not that boy anymore. I'm the man who stood alone in a courtroom and said, "You don't get to call yourself my father." I'm the man who looked generational abandonment in the eye and said, "Not this time. I work at the same shop, same old oil stains, same busted radio in the corner." But now when I laugh with my coworkers or fix someone's car or drink bad gas station coffee on my lunch break, I feel whole. Like every cracked piece finally belongs to me, not him. Sometimes I still get messages. Strangers mostly. People who read the Facebook post and want to share their own stories. Some of them heartbreaking. Some of them infuriating. All of them echoing the same thing. Thank you for saying it out loud. So if you're reading this and you've got your own Mark, your own ghost parent, your own manipulator, your own villain dressed as family, just know this. You don't owe them your silence. You don't owe them your name. You owe you the life they couldn't give. And you get to write the ending? Mine looks like this. A small apartment filled with warmth. An urn on the shelf that holds the woman who actually raised me. And a keychain I made at age 10 that still says Lucas Taylor Moore in crooked glitter-glued letters. That name isn't a rebellion. It's a legacy. It's mine.